Hello and welcome to this edition. I have finished messing around with my DualShock 4 with Xbox One Elite Series 2 stick pots in there. The ones with the stick tension screw mechanism in them. This was the result when I first fixed them, and it was very open on that right hand stick. .09020 was the maximum the dead spot would rest at, with an average error of 10%, which isn't bad. Left stick was 13% average error, so that was overshooting that outer circle. I tested it on 9mm bearings originally and used 100k trim pots on that stick to get these results. 100 and then a 50 at the top there to try and shrink that maximum, trying to maximise the shrinkage there. I couldn't go any higher than a 50k. I've got 30s, but then I couldn't reach full 100% range on the circularity. But what I've done for this second test, I've wrapped the bearings now to 9.6mm, so that's reduced their actual range, which is exactly the same as what the original DualShock 4 stems diameter is, so it's a more accurate test to set up and calibrate the initial resistance of the twin trim pots, which are these little beauties, if you can see them, and they come in 1 million, 500k, 200k, 100k, 50, 30s and 20s. They do go low, but I've never used anything other than a 20 as my lowest, and I usually pair that one with a 30, which is what I did for this right stick result. 20s on the negative position there on axis 2 and a 30 on the right, the plus position, and it still didn't come out that great. But that is because this pot mechanically, when I bought it, let's get that out of the way, is very mechanically loose, the tolerances. That is pathetic. What we've got here, this one is not as bad, although it looks pretty bad on there, doesn't it? Left to right was the sloppier position. I think it was the up and down is the tightest. If they were all as good as this up and down position, I would have been laughing. But it's not. That's the worst one there, because that's the 09804 result, up and down in the worst possible way. But that looks even worse left to right. I don't know. It's hard to tell before you've got them in and tested them. That's the annoying part about it. And they cost a bit of bob, and once they're soldered in, you can't really desolder them without wrecking them. Well, you can, but it's just a pain in the bum. Right, so we ended up with 6.7% average error on that left pot on my retest with twin trim pots, 8.1% average error. So I still stand by the tried and tested. If you've got 10.9% over average error overshoot, you're in a good position to mess about, to calibrate left, right, up, down. It's not about getting absolute zero on that, because then you can kill your 100% circularity range. You can't reach max turn speeds in game, which is something you're going to want to do. And what else can I show you here? Right, yeah, let's just explain that little drawing below there. What you got there is I've opened those pots to the left one has gone far left rotation, and the right one has gone far right rotation. And I think they're million pots there, just to show you. And the drawing below, the three top pins would be the three that you can see there. So instead of soldering it mass centre, I would ring a little wire around the middle pin and solder that to the horseshoe U's of those two top inside pins. And then the way they're set up, they would be maximum resistance length. So on that horseshoe, the current would be flowing through the entire resistance track, which means it'd do a minimal amount of change to the calibration settings there, so they're in their open position. You start like that, solder them in their open position, and then you can calibrate it the opposite way to move the dead spot back the opposite way, to move it in the right direction. And then you can change the resistance power of these with different components to mess about. But you can assess it when they're both in their open position, which side has got the overbloom of the average error circularity the most, and then you can shrink it accordingly dependent on the dead spot sizes. So you have to think a little bit about what you're doing, so you can shunt it one way or the other. And depending on what you start with, if you start with a couple of 30s, 30 ohm resistances, it takes a little bit of messing about to get used to it. There is no hard and fast way when you use the twin trim pot method. You have to be familiar with a single trim pot method to understand what you're doing. It is very complicated. Well, it was for me anyway. Right, and that is the sloppiest spring tension setting. And then you can turn it right up with your with my custom grub screw mount, that is. And then it's a lot stiffer. It does slightly reduce the dead spot results, but it's minimal because this is mechanical slop at the centre there on the resting foot in there with the spring and the foot. So this must have been a second from the production run of the Xbox Elite Series 2 pads, and they just sold them standalone. I say they, AliExpress sold them, so that's China sold them. They make money off of crap. Very good. Right, and let's get that on my lap. Or should I say, stick it there for a minute. And there you go. This is the upside down pad representation with the 30k in the plus position, because it's on the left side there because the pad's upside down as a representation. So the left to right ones always switch their polarity values there, but the up and down ones will stay the same. And I've got 30s and 20s, and I assessed it as I saw it, which way I wanted to push the centre position. Now, what way does it work? The bigger the resistance, the less it affects, or it opens up that side. So if you put a higher resistance on one side and the other, it will open that one up and push the dead spot the opposite direction, if that makes sense. And the lower resistance ones will shrink the side that you put that on. So if everything's open, you think you can get away with having a less high. 20. I'll get muddled up. I'll get muddled up as I'm speaking about it. Lower resistance shrinks the total circularity. So if you've got a 30k and a 30k installed, and then you install a 20k in one of those positions, you're then going to have 50k resistance, not 60k, which means you're going to shrink the circularity. It's just now you've got the left and right to deal with, and the up and down. And in practice, it's hard work figuring it out. Right, let's move on, because I'm waffling. Right, let's move on. What's this here? This is the picture. Right, this is the picture of the actual setup now, internally. So I've got 30 there at the top left, which is in the open position for the screw pot, and then I rotated the opposite side, the 20 side, to position the dead spot. And then this side would be, this is the left stick in an upside down position with 30-30 twins on both positions, so that's 60k resistance total. Is there anything else to show? Yes, there is. There's the actual test results. Right, let's pick the pad up. Test results. There we go. what you will see there on a single pass is that right hand stick is not achieving a full, well it does, it gets to the 100% but not all the time. Sometimes it stops at 99% and you have to move it about, and the same in that top one. But you know what the beauty of it is? It doesn't actually matter with the way I've modified this, because I can take the sellotape off of that 9mm bearing and it will open up the range again. I will end up with an average error overshoot greater than what's currently shown on the screen because I've opened up my stick tilt range. So it don't matter to me. I just wanted to get it as closely calibrated to a factory pot or pad as possible. The one thing that I am annoyed about is I can't get rid of that 0.9. Well, there's 745. Let's see if I can recreate that nasty grey dead spot. There. Oh, but it drops off, which is a good thing. Oh, and up down stick movement, which is where that is, it's better off that it's there than in the left to right position, because some games have an axial dead zone built into them that you can't adjust. What that means is when you're moving left to right, it will kill the up down movement. And I think it was Titanfall 2 that had the axial dead zone. So I think I've taken this pad as far as I can go with it. But just to show you, it is possible to put Xbox One Elite Series 2 screw sticks in a DualShock 4. Good luck getting the sticks to fit. I haven't tested that, but it's possible. And finding quality pots to put in there to start with, yeah, that's going to be a bit expensive little experiment to do. Thanks for watching, and I'll end it there. It is possible, it can be done, and twin trim pots open up your resistance range because you can pair them with more of a range. So you can open up, you can have 2 million resistance as the absolute minimum instead of 1 million now. So on factory pots that need recalibration, that becomes an option, where if you use the 1 million and then you couldn't get and it messed it up, basically it messed up your outer circularity because it shrunk it too much, you need it slightly more open but you still need to reset your dead spot, use twin trim pots and use 1 millions on each side. And because once you've soldered them in the middle, bridged them in the middle, they become a complete circuit. So it's the total number. It's not just the single from one side, because you can do that as well. You can solder only one side and not put anything on the other. But then you can only throw the dead spot on that side and to the centre. You cannot throw it onto the opposite side with the resistance value because it's no longer bridged to the opposite side. It's complicated. I'll end. Goodbye.